So Jad Bharat, he was pretending in society that he was deaf, and he was acting in society as if he was deaf and dumb because he wanted to just go on meditating on the Lord without any disturbance. So people were teasing him, ridiculing him, but he was still tolerating all that because he wanted to avoid any opportunity of getting entangled. So on one occasion, he had the opportunity of carrying the king Rahugana. And King Rahugana was a devotee, but being a Kshatriya, he had a little bit of pride and he was influenced by Rajasgun, passion. So the Jad Bharat, he was walking very carefully because he did not want to place his leg on any ant or any living entity. But the other palanquin carriers of the king, they were not worried about it. But as a result of Jad Bharat being so careful, the palanquin started moving very slowly. So when the speed of the palanquin became slow, the king got very angry. And all the palanquin carriers of the king got scared and said, no, it is not us who's responsible. This new man that we've added, he's slowing down our speed. So King Rahugana began to chastise Jad Bharat. In the beginning, Jad Bharat heard the chastisement. But when he saw that the king was getting very offensive, then he began to speak. And when Jad Bharat spoke, the king came down from his palanquin, fell at his feet and became his disciple. He said, I did not know you were so learned. Please excuse me. So we gave this example to show that here was Jad Bharat who was acting deaf and dumb. But when it came to preaching Krishna consciousness, the king Rahugana, he became like a lion. That is why Prabhupada said a lion while preaching and a lamb at home. When you're preaching Krishna consciousness, distributing books, you have to be like fire, like a lion. And when you're dealing with Vaishnavas, then you be like a straw and a lamb. Don't be a straw outside and fire at home. Don't be a lamb outside and a lion at home. So, a devotee of the Lord, recognizing the transcendental nature of the Lord, is anxious to distribute knowledge about the transcendental nature of the Lord so everyone can associate with this transcendental personality and get purified. So, real intelligence, as Prabhupada says in the purport, means to understand the transcendental nature of the Lord. So the most intelligent people in society are not those who have PhD degrees, but are those who have accepted the conclusion of the scriptures. And those who are convinced about the value of Krishna consciousness, is their prime duty to go and preach the value of Krishna consciousness to others. That is why Prabhupada emphasized preaching. That is why Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati emphasized preaching. That is why Thakur Bhaktivinoda emphasized preaching. Lord Chaitanya emphasized preaching. And Lord Krishna emphasized preaching. Why? Because preaching is one activity by which one gets purified and one purifies others. And the weapon for preaching is this weapon of book distribution. Just like the army marches with ammunition. So we, the soldiers of Krishna's army, also march with ammunition. And what is our ammunition? These transcendental books. Prabhupada described these transcendental books to be like transcendental bombs. Just like a bomb destroys everything, these transcendental books destroy the illusion that material life is enjoyable. So devotees have to equip themselves with these transcendental weapons and give these transcendental weapons to others. And if we give these transcendental weapons, then the whole world will become joyful. Chaitanya Charitamrita states very nicely that without considering who was fit and who was unfit, the Pancha Tattva just broke open the seal of love of God and freely distributed this knowledge of love of God. So following in the footsteps of the Pancha Tattva, each of us of this Krishna conscious movement have to distribute this process of love of God to the suffering humanity. And that medium is book distribution, Harinam, Prasad distribution, preaching to everyone who comes to the temple. The conclusion of all our preaching should be to get people to take these books. Why? Because if you speak to somebody, he will remember what he said for a few minutes and then forget it. Like if 1 hour later I ask you what was in the Bhagavatam class today, you may have trouble recalling. I did a search last night after the Aarti when I asked devotees what was the translation of the verse before the Aarti, hardly few could remember. So Prabhupada said if you speak to somebody, they'll forget it in few minutes or hours or few days. But if you give them a book, it will stay with them. And Krishna and Prabhupada and the whole disciplic succession will be able to directly talk to the conditioned soul. And as they read these books, they'll understand just like all of you understood. At one time, all of you were entangled. But then as you read the books, started chanting, started obtaining devotee association, your lives began to brighten up and change. So just like we have become fortunate, we have to make others fortunate. The great Acharya Sridhar Swami has said, this path of devotional service is so safe and purifying that even if you run on this path with both your eyes closed, still you will not fall. In the material, on the road, even if you walk with both your eyes closed, you'll have an accident within minutes. But on the devotional path, even a little bit done stays to your credit eternally. So as we get convinced about the Krishna conscious philosophy, we get inspired to convince others about this philosophy. And the best means to convince others is give them Prabhupada's books. Even Prabhupada, he would give darshan, but after darshan, when people would be leaving, he would say, oh, you can buy some of these books. We have so many books. And before he went to the West, he would regularly go on the streets himself and distribute these books. So to summarize the verse, Shukadeva Goswami is describing the transcendental personality of Godhead. He's explaining how his name, pastimes, entourage, form are all transcendental. So if we meditate on the transcendental name, form, pastimes, we chant the holy names, then we will also be lifted out of this material consciousness, material world, and we will also be situated in the spiritual energy of the Lord. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare